So for a while now, there's been a pretty big story about government waste and bloat and abuse, and it has to do with what's called the F-35 fighter jet. Now, this is a new generation fighter jet that's supposed to be a big breakthrough for, future wars, and they're ordering them left and right, and they're dumping money into this thing, investing in it. And look at this, guys. The F-35 fighter jet can only fly 55% of the time. Now, do you know how much money we've invested in this thing? $1.7 trillion. $1.7 trillion. That means the cost of making the F-35 fighter jet is almost equal to the cost of the entire war in Afghanistan. And it works half the time. All right. Let's see what they say. This is in the Financial Times. They say the Pentagon's costly fleet of F-35 fighter jets can only fly a little over half the time as maintenance issues keep the aircraft on the ground despite the growing reliance on the planes by the U.S. and its allies. The fleet's mission-capable rate, or the percentage of time a plane can perform one of its assigned missions, was 55% as of March 2023, far below the Pentagon's goal of 85% to 90%, the Government Accountability Office said on Thursday. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if we're spending $1.7 trillion developing these things, I would like it to work 100% of the time. That's just me, though. That's just me. The report from the GAO, an independent congressional watchdog, was published just days after a Marine Corps F-35 crashed in South Carolina, prompting a search for the plane and raising questions over how it could have gone missing for a day before its debris was located. The F-35 share of the U.S.'s overall tactical aviation fleet is expected to keep growing, providing a boon to its manufacturer, Lockheed Martin. Each of the fighter jets cost the government about $160 million. So even though it only works 55% of the time, it's expected that we're going to keep pumping these things out. $160 million a pop. And would you look at that? The beneficiary is Lockheed Martin. Gee, I wonder if we should go take a look at how much money Lockheed Martin has given to politicians in the form of campaign contributions. The U.S. military has 450 F-35s. Variants are used by the Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps, and the Pentagon plans to buy roughly 2,000 more by the mid-2040s, costing $1.7 trillion over the program's life cycle, including $1.3 trillion for maintaining the aircraft. It is the world's costliest defense procurement project, replacing the main fighter for those three branches of the U.S. military, meaning they are flying an increasing amount of operational missions, according to the GAO report. U.S. allies in NATO and Asia, as well as Israel, have also added F-35s to their air forces. The UK Defense Ministry is one of the largest customers for the aircraft. So anyway, you could tell this is a big business. That's what it is. And we have no problem throwing gargantuan amounts of taxpayer dollars at a program like this. Now, just stop and think about it for a second, man. For this amount of money, $1.7 trillion, I wonder what else we could have done. $1.7 trillion for a plane that only works 55% of the time. How much would it cost to have done high-speed rail across the entire country? Right? Could we have built a high-speed rail system across the entire continental U.S. for this amount of money? I don't know. Maybe. We could certainly build a lot of high-speed rail. Maybe enough to do the whole continental U.S. I don't know, but it would be a lot, right? A lot. $1.7 trillion, imagine that goes towards a paid family leave fund, a paid sick leave fund, right? A sovereign wealth fund. We could have done so much more with that money. We could have done so much positive stuff with that money. We just covered a story earlier today. National student lunch debt, which is a thing that shouldn't exist. But I think it totals about, $280 million or so? Now, I'm not good at math, but how many times over could we have paid off the student lunch debt? For how long could we provide free school lunch for every student in the country for that amount of money? Right? How many times over could we pay off medical debt? Just the number of things you could have done with this amount of money. It's astonishing, right? Like I told you, this is almost the same price as the entire war in Afghanistan. We were there for over 20 years. And so it just goes to show you what our priorities are. And look, I think one of the main reasons for our priorities being as they are is because you have Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, all of these defense contractors pay so much money to our politicians, and the politicians get in power and do the bidding of the defense contractors, and this is what we're investing in. You know, it's not like there's a big homeless person lobby where you can start getting big money sent to anti-homelessness causes. To be fair, there is a decent amount of money sent to that stuff, but I think it's more at the state level than it is at the federal level, and they're using a lot of contractors that are questionable and iffy, and people are profiteering off it. We covered a big story on that coming out of New York with this like cockroach-infested, multimillionaire who's running these homelessness shelters, and he's really just shaking down everybody. But like, again, I come back to the main point here. 1.7 trillion for a plane that works 55% of the time. Nobody batted an eyelash. But God forbid you say something like, hey, maybe we should give people free college. Oh my God, how are we going to pay for it? How are we going to afford it? The sky's falling. This is impossible. What are we talking about? Funny enough, 1.7 trillion, that's about what the number is of student loan debt for the entire country. Biden tried to wipe out a decent percentage of that, and we've given him credit for that. He's still fighting the Supreme Court on it, going through the Higher Education Act now, which is a proper path. But you could have wiped out about all the student loan debt for that amount of money. Instead, we have a plane that works 55% of the time. And waste, bloat, and abuse. Guys, remember, we covered this story not that long ago. I believe the number was the Pentagon can't account for 60% of its money. 60%! It's unconscionable what we throw money at in this country and what we don't throw money at. And this is a great example of it here. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.